When I left the army after 12 years, I thought the hardest part of my life was behind me. Turns out, war teaches you how to fight, but not how to live under the same roof with your sister again. Her name's Angela Whitaker, 3 years older, twice as dramatic, and somehow always the victim in her own stories. I came back to Port Harlan, North Carolina, with 2 duffel bags, a clean service record, and a plan to get my civilian life together. The house I came home to was the same one our parents left behind. White porch, peeling paint, and the smell of salt from the nearby docks. Only this time, Angela was the one living in it. She greeted me at the door wearing a silk robe and holding a coffee mug that said, "Boss Lady." "Oh," she said, looking me up and down. "You actually came back." "Yeah. The army didn't extend the invitation for a 15th deployment." She forced a smile and stepped aside. "Well, don't make yourself too comfortable. It's been my house for years now." That was her way of saying she'd been squatting here since Mom passed away and hadn't paid a cent of property tax. Still, I bit my tongue. I'd seen worse attitudes overseas, mostly from people with actual weapons. Inside, the house looked smaller, probably because Angela had turned the living room into a storage unit for her failed business ventures, boxes labeled Essential Oils Empire and Angela's Candle Boutique. Her 10-year-old son, Ethan, sat on the couch, eyes glued to a tablet. The kid barely looked up. Poor thing had learned early how to survive chaos by tuning it out. I set my duffel down by the stairs. "I'll take the guest room." She glanced over her shoulder. "That's my office." "You have an office?" "Well, I will, once my new Etsy store takes off." I nodded. "Then I'll take the attic." "You can't breathe up there in the summer." "I served in Afghanistan," I said. "I'll manage." End quote. That shut her up for about 10 seconds. By the end of the first week, I realized civilian life had its own kind of battlefield, passive-aggressive comments instead of gunfire, emotional landmines instead of IEDs. Angela complained about the grocery bills, the electricity I used too much of, and how my military discipline vibe made her nervous. I offered to split expenses 50-50, but she waved her hand. "You don't understand real life, Caroline. Things aren't like your army spreadsheets." End of verse. She spent her days at home scrolling through Instagram, pretending to run an online store. I spent mine working security at a shipping company down by the docks. Every night I'd come home, fix myself dinner, and clean the kitchen because she wouldn't. I didn't mind, it gave me something to control. But little cracks started showing fast. One morning, while I was making coffee, Angela came in wearing sunglasses and a robe like she was hiding from the paparazzi. "By the way," she said casually, "I'm behind on my credit card bills. I might need to borrow a little." "How much?" "Just $2,000. I'll pay you back when my products launch." Her products had been launching for 3 years. Still, she was my sister. So, I transferred the money. A month later, she needed another loan for Ethan's school trip this time. Then it was for the car. Then for tax stuff. The woman was a one-woman stimulus package. I didn't even argue. The army taught me patience, too much of it, maybe. But after a while, I realized I wasn't helping her. I was just enabling her. One evening, I came home early from work and heard her talking on the phone. I swear, she acts like she owns the place just because she was in the army. Like that gives her authority over everything. She's not even paying rent. I stopped in the hallway, hand still on my keys. Not paying rent? I'd been covering the mortgage, insurance, and utilities. I walked away quietly, but my chest felt tight. Not from anger, more like a quiet disappointment you can't shake off. That night, Ethan knocked on my door. "Aunt Carrie, Mom said I shouldn't bother you, but I just wanted to say thanks for fixing my bike." I smiled. "Anytime, champ." He hesitated. "Are you mad at Mom?" "No," I said softly. "I'm just learning what kind of person she is." He looked confused, then nodded like a soldier following orders and went to bed. The next day, I tried to talk to Angela calmly. "You've been using my name on some of the utility accounts," I said. She rolled her eyes. "So what? We're family. It's not like I'm stealing your identity." "That's literally what that is, Angela." "Oh my God, you're so dramatic. You act like I'm some criminal." "Maybe relax for once? Not everything's a mission briefing." I stared at her and thought about how discipline and boundaries don't mean much to people who never had any. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. She started bringing her new boyfriend, Derek, around. Slick hair, leather jacket, the kind of guy who calls everyone buddy and means none of it. He smelled like cheap cologne and bad decisions. Angela giggled like a teenager whenever he was around. I caught him once looking around the house a little too closely like he was appraising it. I didn't say anything, but I started locking my door at night. Old habits die hard. Then one evening, I walked into the kitchen and found Derek pouring himself a drink from my bottle of bourbon. "Hope you don't mind," he said with that fake grin. "I do." He froze, then laughed like it was a joke. "You military types don't play, huh? Not when it comes to respect." Angela swooped in, her tone dripping with condescension. "Relax, Caroline. You're not in the barracks anymore. It's just a drink." I looked at her. "He's not family. And even family should ask." "Hadoué." She crossed her arms. "This is my house, remember?" That was the first time she said it like a weapon. I didn't respond. I just picked up my glass, poured what was left of the bourbon down the drain and said, "Then take care of your house, Angela." The next morning I woke up before dawn, out of habit, and went for a run by the docks. The ocean was still dark, the air salty and sharp. I tried to think about my next steps, getting my own place, maybe transferring to a job out of state, but something in me didn't want to run again. When I came back, the smell of burnt toast filled the house. Angela was sitting at the table in pajamas, scrolling on her phone. "You got mail," she said flatly, nodding toward a pile of envelopes. One of them was from the mortgage company. My name on the front, hers wasn't. That's when I realized she'd never put herself on the deed. The house was still legally mine. I didn't say a word. I just made coffee, sat down, and watched her scroll through other people's perfect lives on Instagram. She sighed loudly. "You know, I'm tired of always feeling like I owe you something. You walk around here like some hero. Maybe if you weren't so controlling, people would actually like you." I took a slow sip. "People don't have to like me, Angela. They just have to stop taking advantage of me." She laughed without humor. "Oh, please. You act like you're the victim here. I've been the one keeping this house running since Mom died." I didn't remind her who paid every bill. I just stood up, grabbed my keys, and said, "Keep telling yourself that." As I walked out the door, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the hallway mirror, still in uniform pants, hair pulled back tight. I looked more like a soldier than a sister. And maybe that's why she hated me so much. But even as I stepped outside into the sunlight, something inside me knew this wasn't just family tension. It was the beginning of a war I didn't choose, but one I was damn sure going to finish. The next morning, I skipped coffee. My hands were already steady, but my thoughts weren't. I packed my duffel and went to work early, just to get out of that house before Angela found a new way to ruin breakfast. Working security at the docks wasn't glamorous, but it was predictable, unlike living with her. The place smelled like oil and seawater, and the men there respected silence. I liked that. No gossip, no fake sympathy, just nods and the occasional "Morning, Whitaker." During lunch, I sat in my truck, scrolling through job listings on my phone. Housing prices were brutal. Renting anything nearby cost more than half my paycheck. Buying was impossible, not with the mortgage still under my name and Angela refusing to sign her half. The irony wasn't lost on me. I owned the house but had nowhere to live. When I got home that evening, Angela was sitting on the couch with Derek. He was sprawled out like he paid the bills. The TV was blasting some reality show about rich people arguing. My old military jacket was on the floor under his shoes. I picked it up without a word. Angela glanced at me. "You know, you could at least say hi." "Hi." Her tone sharpened. "You're so rude lately. Is it that hard to be grateful you have a roof over your head?" I looked at her, genuinely amused. "Grateful? You mean for my house?" She glared, but Derek laughed. "Damn, she got you there, babe." Angela smacked his arm, embarrassed. "Don't call me babe in front of her." He shrugged. "Whatever. You two need therapy or something?" I hung my jacket in the hallway and said, "No, we need boundaries." End quote. Angela muttered something about control freaks as I went upstairs. The same words I used to hear from recruits who couldn't follow orders. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I could hear them laughing downstairs, glasses clinking, the faint smell of weed seeping up through the vents. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the missions I'd survived, dust storms, night raids, and men who'd do anything to get home alive. Somehow, this felt harder. You can't reason with family who choose to be enemies. By the end of that week, I started keeping my things locked in my room. Laptop, documents, even my wallet. I'd seen what borrowing meant in Angela's world. Saturday morning, I found Derek in the kitchen shirtless, making pancakes with my groceries. "Morning, soldier," he said with that smirk. "I'm not in the army anymore. Old habits die hard, huh?" He flipped a pancake like he owned the place. "You ever think about lightening up? You're too stiff. No wonder you're single." Angela walked in, laughing. "He's just kidding. Don't be so serious all the time." I turned off the stove. "You want to cook? Buy your own food." Derek frowned. "You got issues." "I have receipts," I said, grabbing my coffee and walking out. Later that day, Ethan found me outside fixing the fence. "Mom says you're mad again." I smiled faintly. "I'm not mad, buddy. Just tired." "No." "From work?" "From people who confuse kindness with weakness." He tilted his head like he was trying to figure that out. Smart kid. Too smart for the environment he was stuck in. That night, Angela brought up money again. "The electric bill's due. I figured we split it, since you're using the lights too." "I've been paying it for months." "Yeah, but things are different now. Derek's here more, so it's fair we all chip in." "Derek doesn't live here." "He basically does." "Oh. Then maybe he should start paying rent." She slammed the bill on the counter. "You know what your problem is? You think you're better than everyone? Just because you wore a uniform doesn't make you special?" I stared at her, my voice calm. "You're right. The uniform doesn't make me special. What I did while wearing it does." She scoffed and stormed off, muttering something about me being emotionally unavailable. The next morning, the tension was thick enough to choke on. Derek was sitting at the table scrolling through his phone. "You ever think about selling this place?" he asked casually. "It's not for sale." He leaned back. "Everything's for sale if the price is right. Not this." He smiled like he knew something I didn't. "You should talk to Angela about it. She's got plans." I didn't answer. But the way he said plans made my stomach tighten. That evening, Angela cornered me in the hallway. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe it's time you moved out. You've had your fresh start, and I need space." "You're serious." "Completely. You can afford an apartment. And honestly, it's awkward having you here. You don't even talk to us." I let out a small laugh. "You mean I don't worship Derek the way you do?" Her face twisted. "You're jealous. That's what this is." "Of what? Your unpaid bills? Or your freeloading boyfriend?" She slapped me before she could stop herself. For a moment, neither of us moved. The sound echoed down the hallway. Ethan's door cracked open. His small face peeked out, eyes wide. Angela's voice dropped. "Don't look at me like that," I said quietly. "You just made this real." I walked out before I said something I'd regret. Outside, the air was cold, the street silent except for crickets. I sat on the porch steps and stared at the old oak tree in the yard. I remembered my father planting it when we were kids, saying, "Roots matter more than branches. Branches fall." Oh. The next few days passed in silence. Angela pretended nothing happened. Derek avoided me completely. Ethan stayed out of sight. I started coming home later from work just to avoid them. One afternoon, Mark from the store called me. "Hey Whitaker, just so you know, someone was asking about security cameras from last week. Said she was your sister." I frowned. "What for?" "She said she wanted footage of the parking lot near the lottery machine." "You buy something big lately?" My heart slowed. "No." "Why?" "She said she lost a ticket," seemed excited. I thanked him and hung up, not sure what to think. Angela and her plans, Derek and his grin. I didn't want to believe they were stupid enough to mess with my stuff, but I'd seen desperation before it makes people bold. When I got home that night, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Angela's purse was on the counter. Derek's jacket hung on the chair. I went upstairs, and that's when I noticed the drawer of my desk was open. Inside, the small envelope that used to hold my lottery ticket was gone. I stood there, heartbeat steady, not surprised, just aware. In the army, you learn to read the moment right before a bomb goes off. The stillness, the calm. I exhaled slowly, almost smiling. Some wars start with a shot, others start with a missing envelope. I didn't touch the empty drawer for a long minute. The paper indent from where the envelope had rested was still there, just a faint rectangle of clean wood surrounded by dust. That's how you know something mattered by the mark it leaves when it's gone. I walked downstairs. Angela and Derek were in the living room, laughing at something on his phone. My boots made that heavy thud on the wooden steps, and they both looked up like kids caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Did one of you move anything from my desk? Angela blinked. Why would we? Because something's missing. She gave that nervous laugh she always gave before lying. Caroline, not everything in this house is about you. Derek leaned forward, smirking. You misplaced something, soldier? I looked at him. Yeah, my patience. He chuckled like he'd won something. Angela stood and walked toward me. You've been paranoid since you got back. Maybe you should talk to someone. You know, professionally. That. I have, I said, and they told me to avoid toxic environments. She rolled her eyes and walked off. Derek muttered something under his breath, but I didn't care enough to catch it. Later that night, I went back to my room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. My military training always told me to think tactically, assume nothing, verify everything. So I started from memory. I'd bought the ticket at Harlan Mart, signed the back, and kept the receipt in my wallet. That was still there. Good. I had proof of purchase. I opened my laptop and pulled up the state lottery website. The drawing was scheduled for Saturday night, televised at 8 p.m. The date was circled in my mental calendar, but I hadn't planned on watching. People like me didn't win that kind of money. We won discounts on tires or free gas station coffee. Still, I decided to tune in. Saturday came. The house felt like a minefield. Angela and Derek were acting strangely cheerful. They'd even cleaned the kitchen, which meant guilt or manipulation, sometimes both. Around 8 o'clock, they were already in the living room, eyes glued to the TV. I stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. The announcer started reading numbers. I knew them instantly. Every date was burned into my head. Dad's birthday, Mom's, my enlistment day, the day Sergeant Lee died in Afghanistan. Numbers I could never forget. Angela started screaming before the announcer even finished. Oh my God, Derek, that's it, that's it! I froze. Derek grabbed her hand, shouting, Holy hell, baby, we won. We actually won. She spun in circles, phone in hand, already recording herself. $85 million, I can't believe it. I stayed quiet. My heart wasn't racing, it was slowing down. Every word out of her mouth sounded like static. Angela turned to me, camera still rolling. Caroline, can you believe it? We're rich. I asked evenly, You sure it's yours? She laughed like I was joking. Of course it's mine. I bought it last week at Harlan Mart. Don't ruin the moment. That's interesting, I said. I bought mine there too. Her expression faltered, just for a second. Then she lifted her chin. Well, maybe you should have checked your numbers sooner. Derek chimed in. Don't be salty, Caroline. We'll throw you something nice for helping out these past months. Oh, weck. Something nice. I walked to the kitchen, poured water into a glass, and said loud enough for them to hear, You might want to keep that ticket safe until they verify the claim. Oh, we already called, Angela said from the couch. They said to come Monday morning with ID and the ticket. They'll handle the rest. Good, I said, finishing my water. Make sure they see whose name's on the back. Derek laughed. Why? You think your sister doesn't know how to fill out a form? I set the glass down gently. No, I think she knows exactly what she's doing. The rest of the night was chaos, champagne bottles, phone calls to people she hadn't spoken to in years, even a Facebook post with hashtags like Number Lottery Queen and Number Blessed Life. By morning, local news outlets were already sniffing around. A reporter called asking for an interview with the woman from Port Harlan who won the $85 million jackpot. Angela said yes before they finished the question. That afternoon, a black SUV pulled up in front of the house. 2 men in suits stepped out, representatives from the State Lottery Commission. Angela posed at the door like she was accepting a Grammy. They took her statement, congratulated her, and told her verification could take up to 5 business days. She nodded like she'd just won an election. I stayed in my room, door locked. My phone buzzed nonstop texts from people who'd seen the news and assumed it was me. Congrats, soldier. Finally, some good karma. Buy us a drink. I didn't reply to any. The next day, I came home from work to find my clothes in garbage bags by the front door. Angela was standing behind them, arms crossed, Derek lounging on the porch steps with a beer. "What's this?" I asked. Angela said, "It's time you moved out. Derek and I need the house to ourselves. We'll pay off the mortgage once the money comes through." "You mean my mortgage?" Her tone turned sharp. "You're not part of this, Caroline. You didn't buy the ticket. You don't own the house. You're just squatting in my life." I laughed quietly. "Your life? You mean the one I financed for years?" Derek stood up. "Come on, don't make this ugly. You had your time here. Let her be happy." I looked at him. "You're not going to be happy for long." "Vaughn." Angela raised her voice, maybe for the cameras she thought were watching. I said, "Get out. You think wearing a uniform makes you better than me? You're just bitter because luck finally chose me instead of you." Her words bounced off me like rubber bullets. I picked up one of the bags, slung it over my shoulder, and said quietly, "Make sure you check that ticket carefully." She sneered. "Why? Scared it's not real?" "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "Scared you didn't read the name written on it." I walked down the steps, the weight of the bag digging into my shoulder. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of rain coming in from the coast. Behind me, I heard Derek laugh. "Don't worry, Caroline. We'll send you a postcard from Hawaii." I didn't look back. Halfway down the street, the first raindrop hit my hand. I stopped under the old oak tree, Dad's tree, and looked back at the house. The porch light flickered, just once, before going out. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mark at Harlan Mart. "Hey, saw the news. Crazy stuff. By the way, we've still got the store footage from the day you bought that ticket. You want me to hold on to it?" I stared at the message. My reflection in the phone screen was calm. Not angry, just focused. I typed back, "Yes, don't delete anything." Then I slipped the phone into my pocket, pulled up my hood, and kept walking. The rain came down hard that night, cold enough to sting. My duffel bag was soaked through before I even reached the end of the block. I found a cheap motel near the highway, one of those places where the vending machine hums louder than the heater, and checked in with my last bit of pride. The room smelled like cigarettes and bleach. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone screen, glowing in the dark. Angela's live video had nearly 1,000 views already, her laughing with Derek, drinking champagne, bragging about how her luck finally turned around. The comments were a mess of congratulations and jealousy. Someone wrote, "God bless, you deserve it." And another said, "I'd kick my sister out too if she acted like that." It was surreal watching strangers celebrate my eviction like it was a reality show twist. I turned the phone off and leaned back. The ceiling was cracked, water-stained, and ugly, but it didn't judge me. For the first time in years, I wasn't surrounded by her noise. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that lets your brain start working again. The next morning, I called the state lottery office. The woman on the line sounded polite and tired. I gave her the date and location of my purchase. She confirmed they'd received a claim under the same drawing but couldn't share names until verification was complete. "If you believe there's been a mistake," she said, "you'll need proof of purchase." Proof I had. I took the day off work and went to see Mark at Harlan Mart. He greeted me with that lopsided grin of his. "Figured you'd stop by sooner or later." "I need the security footage from last Friday," I said. "The one showing me buying the ticket." He scratched his chin. "You got lucky, Whitaker. System keeps footage for 7 days before it rewrites. I already pulled your clip, just in case. I didn't trust the way your sister was asking about it." He showed me the time-stamped video me at the counter, signing the back of the ticket, folding the receipt, sliding both into my pocket, clear as day. "Can you make me a copy of that?" He nodded. "Already did. And don't worry, I haven't told her you know." "Appreciate it." I paid him for a coffee I didn't drink and left. Outside, the sky was gray but steady. It didn't bother me. Storms don't scare you after you've lived through real ones. At lunch, I stopped by a law office near downtown. The sign on the door read Avery Grant, attorney at law. The name rang a bell he'd served with me overseas. Grant looked up from his desk when I walked in. "Whitaker? Damn, it's been years." "Too many," I said. "You still clean up pretty well for someone who used to eat dust." He laughed. "What brings you here? Don't tell me you finally got in trouble." "Not yet. But someone's trying to rob me legally." I told him the story straight, no drama, just facts. The ticket, the signature, the stolen envelope, The eviction. Grant listened quietly, tapping a pen against his notepad. When I finished, he said, "You've got a solid case if you can prove ownership. The signature helps, but you'll need chain of custody where the ticket was kept, who had access, when it went missing. We'll file an injunction to freeze the payout until it's verified. End of 25. How long will that take? A week? Maybe 2. Depends how fast the state moves." He leaned back, studying me. "You okay, Whitaker?" I nodded. "I've been through worse." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, but not the kind where your own blood sells you out." He was right. Combat wounds heal faster than betrayal. By the time I left his office, the sun was breaking through the clouds. I walked into a pawn shop across the street and bought a cheap flip phone, no apps, no location tracking. Angela had a habit of snooping. I checked into a small rental room above an old diner owned by a widow named Mrs. Hargrove. She recognized my name right away. "I knew your father," she said, handing me a spare key. "He used to fix my fence every spring. He liked keeping things upright," I said, and she smiled like she understood exactly what that meant. That night, I scrolled through social media. Angela had doubled down on her Victory Tour news interviews, Facebook posts, even a local TV segment where she said, "My sister always taught me discipline, but luck? That's something you're born with." I almost laughed. Then I saw Ethan in the background of one of the videos, looking small and uncomfortable while reporters asked questions. His eyes found the camera once, and for a split second, he looked like he wanted to run. A message came through a few minutes later. It was from an unknown number, his. "Aunt Carrie, Mom said not to talk to you, but I wanted to tell you something. She and Derek are fighting about money. Please don't be mad. I just wanted you to know." I stared at the message for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Finally, I typed back, "I'm not mad, kid. Just stay out of it. Keep your head down." He sent a thumbs up emoji. It made me ache a little. The next morning, the story hit the National Lottery website. Local woman claims $85 million jackpot pending verification. Her name, bold and shining, Angela Whitaker. But something in the photo caught my eye. She was holding the ticket backward, showing the signature side, but her thumb covered the corner where my name was signed. I zoomed in anyway. Even blurred, I could still see the bottom half of my C. Grant called not long after. "Saw the announcement. We filed the injunction. They can't release the funds until ownership's verified." "Good," I said. "I'll send you the footage and receipts." "Send everything," he said. "We'll handle it quietly. Let her dig her own hole." That was fine by me. I'd spent years learning how to wait. You don't rush justice, you set it up, steady, methodical, until the target doesn't see it coming. That evening I walked past the old house. Angela's SUV was in the driveway, music blaring, Derek's voice loud and angry from inside. The porch light flickered again, same as the night I left. I didn't stop. I just kept walking, hands in my pockets, letting the cold air fill my lungs. When I reached the corner, I looked back one last time. Her laughter cut through the night, sharp, desperate, hollow. Somewhere deep down, I felt the shift. The part of me that once wanted peace had gone quiet. What replaced it wasn't anger, it was clarity. People think revenge is rage. It's not, it's focus. And I'd never been more focused in my life. The motel's coffee was bad enough to taste honest. I drank it anyway, sitting by the window as the news replayed Angela's interview for the 3rd time that morning. She wore a new dress, probably bought on credit, and kept repeating that line about dreams finally coming true. Derek stood behind her, smiling like a man who'd already started spending money he didn't have yet. People in Port Harlan were eating it up. The local radio station called her our small-town Cinderella. I couldn't decide if it was funny or pathetic. I needed air, so I grabbed my keys and drove to the docks. Work felt like the only place left that still made sense. The smell of diesel and salt water, the rhythm of cranes moving containers, it was routine, predictable, safe. Halfway through my shift, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw the message. "Aunt Carrie? It's Ethan. Mom's yelling again." Derek said, "She needs to sign something about the money." My chest tightened. I typed back quickly, "Stay in your room, lock the door, don't argue." He replied, "Okay. Please don't tell Mom I texted you." I stared at the screen for a long moment before sliding it into my pocket. The sound of metal clanging outside snapped me back. There was no use running home, she'd made it clear I wasn't welcome, but that message stuck in my mind like a bad tune. When my shift ended, I sat in my truck, engine off, watching the harbor lights flicker on the water. A seagull landed on the hood, pecked at something invisible, then flew off. Simple creatures, they take what they need and leave. Humans complicate everything. Back at the motel, the clerk handed me a note. "Someone dropped this off for you." It was a plain envelope with my name written in Ethan's shaky handwriting. Inside was a crumpled drawing me, him, and the old house. At the bottom he'd scribbled, "I miss when it felt like home." That one hurt more than the slap. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time it was Grant, my lawyer friend. "Good news," he said. "The injunction's been approved. Lottery Commission froze the payout pending investigation. So they can't touch the money. Not a cent. But brace yourself, it'll get ugly. She's already hired counsel, claims you're making it up out of jealousy." "Let her talk," I said. "Every word she says digs deeper." Grant chuckled. "There's that military optimism. Keep your head down and document everything. I'll call when the hearing date's set." When I hung up, I felt a flicker of calm. Not victory, just control. For the first time in weeks, the ground under me felt solid again. That night, I parked a few blocks from the house and watched from across the street. The lights were on, music blasting, laughter spilling out into the yard. Derek's truck was there, along with a couple of others I didn't recognize. Probably friends celebrating early. From where I stood, I could see Ethan's shadow pass by his window upstairs. The rest of the house looked like a circus. Angela playing queen of the world while her empire rotted under her feet. I wasn't proud of the part of me that wanted to walk up and knock on the door just to see her face drop. But revenge isn't about drama, it's about precision. So I stayed where I was, quiet, watching. A car slowed down beside me. Mark leaned out the window. "You stalking your sister or casing the joint?" "Little of both," I said. He parked and got out, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. "You good?" "Define good." He shrugged. "Still standing, still thinking straight. That's good enough." We talked for a while about the footage, the legal stuff, life after the military. He said he'd been following the news too. "Whole town's treating her like she's royalty," he said. "Funny thing about crowns, they're heavy." When he left, I stayed a few minutes longer, then drove off before someone noticed the car. The following week, the story shifted. News outlets started questioning Angela's claim. Sources close to the investigation say ownership of the ticket is disputed. That was the first crack. By Wednesday, a reporter knocked on my motel door. "Miss Whitaker, can we ask your side of the story?" I looked at the camera crew behind her. No comment. Truth doesn't need headlines. She still aired a segment that night, showing me walking away with a caption that read, "Sister of alleged winner speaks through actions." Comments online flipped instantly. Half the town thought I was lying. The other half thought Angela was. Small towns love drama, they just change sides when it's convenient. I tried to keep my head clear. Every morning I ran by the docks. Every night I wrote notes for grant dates, receipts, phone calls. My life had become a military operation again, one objective at a time. Then, 2 nights before the hearing, Ethan showed up outside the diner where I rented my room. Mrs. Hargrove found him sitting on the steps with his backpack. "He's been here an hour," she whispered. He looked up at me, eyes red. I didn't know where else to go. I crouched down. "What happened?" "Mom and Derek were fighting. He said the money's not coming and she threw a glass at him. He left. She told me to stay in my room, but I got scared." I exhaled slowly. "You did the right thing, kid." He bit his lip. "Are you going to get in trouble for helping me?" "Probably," I said. "But I've been in worse trouble." I called Grant and explained the situation. He told me to keep Ethan with me for the night. Said it'd look better if we documented everything. Mrs. Hargrove made him grilled cheese and hot chocolate. The kid ate like he hadn't had a proper meal in days. When he finally fell asleep on the couch, I sat nearby, watching the rain hit the diner window. Angela's world was crumbling, but not fast enough to save what mattered. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. I answered quietly. "Where's my son?" Angela's voice was sharp, slurred. "He's safe." "You kidnapped him." "No, Angela. He walked here because you were too busy fighting over money to notice. You think you're so perfect, she spat. The whole town feels sorry for you, but you're just jealous. You always were. You couldn't stand that I finally got something you didn't. I didn't respond. Silence worked better than any argument. She hung up after a few curses, and I sat there listening to the hum of the fridge, the kid breathing softly in his sleep, the world outside dissolving into rain. I thought about everything I'd lost: my home, my reputation, my peace, and realized none of it mattered as much as keeping this boy from turning into her. Some things you don't do for revenge. You do them to stop the damage from spreading. Ethan was still asleep when the sun came up. The diner downstairs was already open, and the smell of bacon drifted through the floorboards. I poured myself coffee and stood by the window, watching trucks roll down the empty street. My brain was calm in that way it used to be before an operation, quiet, sharp, calculating. I'd spent weeks reacting. Now it was time to act. Mrs. Hargrove walked in quietly with a blanket. That boy slept like he hadn't in a while. He's safe here, I said. You sure you're not in trouble for keeping him? Only the kind I can handle. She nodded. You sound just like your father when he caught someone lying. Didn't raise his voice, just made them feel the weight of truth. I smiled. Guess it runs in the family. After breakfast, I called Grant. We're done waiting, I told him. He didn't need more context. You've got something new? I've got everything. Video proof, receipts, and now a witness who heard them fighting about money. I want to move forward. Grant exhaled through the phone. Then we build the case airtight. You sure you're ready for the blowback? I've been shot at. I can handle gossip. He laughed. Meet me this afternoon. Bring what you have. I died. Before I left, I slipped a note under Ethan's pillow. Stay with Mrs. H. I'll be back soon. Then I headed to Mark's store. He was restocking shelves, humming along to some country song. Heard the news, he said before I opened my mouth. Lottery commissions finishing the verification this week. Big day coming. I need that footage on a drive, I said. He handed me a small USB. Already done. I even added the timestamp overlay. Shows your signature plain as daylight. Exed. You just saved me a war. He grinned. Didn't you say you were good at those? From there, I drove to Grant's office. He had that lawyer look now: clean suit, tie, a wall of books he probably hadn't opened in years. But under it, I still saw the soldier. The man who once led patrols through minefields without flinching. He plugged in the USB, watched the footage, and nodded slowly. This is gold. Chain of custody's intact, signatures visible, and the clerk's statement will lock it down. Combine that with the injunction already in place, and the court won't risk releasing a dime to her. He leaned back. You realize what happens when we win, right? The whole town's going to turn on her. She earned it. I'm not arguing. He rubbed his jaw. You want this handled quietly, or you want it public? Public, I said. Let her face what she built. Grant studied me for a second. You're colder than I remember. I looked at him. You can't freeze something that was never warm. Tavan, he didn't push. All right then. I'll file the final motion today. You just stay clean, no contact with her, no confrontation. Understood. But discipline only goes so far when your blood's boiling under it. That evening, as I walked back to the diner, I saw Angela's car parked across the street. She was leaning against it, sunglasses on, like she was starring in her own pity movie. Nice place, she said when I got close. Downgraded fast, huh? Did you come here for small talk, or to confess? She smirked. Confess? Please. Everyone knows I won. You're just trying to ruin my moment because you can't stand not being the hero. Your moment is about to become evidence. Her face tightened. You think you're so clever. I talked to your lawyer. He's bluffing. There's no proof that ticket was yours. Then you haven't seen the footage yet. That made her blink. I stepped closer. My voice even. You took something that wasn't yours, Angela. And worse, you used our parents' house to hide behind it. That's not luck. It's theft. She crossed her arms, deflecting with arrogance like always. You wouldn't dare take your own sister to court. What would people think? They'll think I stopped letting people walk over me. Her jaw clenched. You don't scare me, Caroline. I'm not trying to. I walked past her toward the diner door, but she called out after me. If you drag me through this, I'll make sure everyone knows about your breakdown overseas. The meds, the therapy. You think they'll hand millions to someone unstable? I turned slowly. You can tell them whatever you want. But remember, soldiers don't need to be liked to win. The words hung in the air long after she got in her car and sped off. Inside, Mrs. Hargrove gave me a knowing look. You talked to her. She talked to me, I said. Big difference. And tit. That night, I sat on the diner's back steps, watching the rain drip off the gutter. I thought about how much of my life I'd spent avoiding confrontation. In the military, discipline keeps you alive. In civilian life, it just lets people think you won't hit back. I'd let Angela mistake my silence for surrender. That was over. I went inside, pulled out my laptop, and started organizing everything: timestamps, emails, copies of texts, the video footage, the deed to the house. Each file neatly labeled and stored on an encrypted drive. Years of order drilled into me for moments like this. Then I printed one picture and set it beside the pile. Me, Angela, and our parents in front of that house when we were kids. Everyone smiling, sun in our eyes. A different lifetime. When I finally looked up, Ethan was standing in the doorway, sleepy but curious. Is Mom coming to get me? He asked. Not tonight. She's mad at you. I know. Duh. Are you mad at her? I thought about it. No, I'm disappointed. That's worse. He didn't say anything for a while, then looked at the photo. You used to be friends. We used to be sisters, I said softly. He nodded like he understood more than he should, and went back to bed. Once he was gone, I called Grant again. File everything tonight, no delays. Already did, he said. Hearing's Friday. She'll get the notice tomorrow morning. Good. I'm May. Whitaker, he added, voice lower. Don't do anything rash. I smiled faintly. You're confusing action with rashness. When I hung up, I didn't feel anger. I felt precision, like lining up a target through a scope and waiting for the right breath. By morning, the papers were served. Angela's name on the envelope, bold and legal. She couldn't ignore it this time. While the rest of Port Harlan went about its small-town routines, coffee, gossip, church plans, lottery envy, I walked through it invisible, steady, unreadable. Revenge wasn't some cinematic outburst. It was patience, discipline, and timing. And timing was finally on my side. Angela always had a way of making chaos look glamorous. For a week straight, every time I turned on the TV or opened my phone, there she was posing in front of rented cars, giving interviews, smiling like she'd already spent the money. But behind those perfect smiles, cracks were spreading faster than she could patch them. Derek wasn't around much anymore. Word around town was he'd been bragging at the bar that the money would hit his account soon. He even flashed a new watch that looked suspiciously fake. Angela didn't notice, or maybe she didn't want to. I didn't have to wait long for everything to start unraveling. On Wednesday morning, Grant called me. They confirmed it. The Lottery Commission validated your signature on the ticket. The payout is frozen pending final verification. I took a slow breath. So they know it's mine. Legally, yes, but we're keeping quiet until the paperwork's sealed. You'll get official notice by Friday. Let her enjoy her parade, I said. She's almost out of road. By Friday evening, it was raining again. I was helping Mrs. Hargrove cover patio furniture when Ethan came running outside with his phone. Aunt Carrie, Mom's on TV again. We went inside. The headline across the bottom of the screen read, Lottery winners payout delayed after verification issues. Angela looked pale, sitting beside Derek on a couch, her voice shaking as she tried to sound confident. It's just red tape, she told the reporter. They said it's normal. I'll have the money any day now. Derek nodded beside her, but his jaw was tight. When the camera panned away, I caught the way he glared at her. It was the kind of look that doesn't end with an apology. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat in the diner booth, stirring his cocoa. Mom's scared, he said quietly. I heard her crying on the phone. She said Derek's been taking money from her card. I leaned back. She'll have to learn who she's really dealing with. Will you help her? He asked. I'm helping you, I said. That's what matters. He looked down at his cup. She's still my mom. I know, kid. The next morning, Mrs. Hargrove handed me the newspaper. The front page read, Local lottery winner under investigation for fraud. Angela's picture looked like a mugshot taken in full makeup. The article said the Lottery Commission had suspended her claim until ownership was fully verified. I drove to Grant's office later that day. He was smiling before I even sat down. They tried to pull a stunt, filed a motion saying you gifted the ticket to her. The judge laughed. Literally laughed. I can imagine, I said. He slid a copy of the report across his desk. Lottery security reviewed the surveillance. Your signature is clear, timestamp matches your purchase, and the clerk verified your identity. It's airtight. By Monday, it'll be public record. Aximany. What happens to her? She'll be fine unless she lied under oath or tampered with evidence. Derek, though, he's got priors. If he convinced her to file a false claim, that's fraud. I nodded. That tracks. As I walked out, my phone buzzed again, unknown number. I answered. It was Angela. Her voice was raw. They froze everything, Caroline. My accounts, my car, everything. What did you do? I didn't do anything, I said. You did. End quote. You think you're better than me, don't you? You always did. You can't just let me have one good thing. One good thing? I said. You stole it. I deserve it, she screamed. After everything I gave up for this family, I deserve something for once. Deserve's got nothing to do with it. She was crying now. They're going to take my house. Ethan, I cut her off. You lost that house the day you threw me out of it. Silence. Then the line went dead. That evening, Ethan sat quietly on the steps outside. He'd heard enough to know something was over. Is she going to jail? He asked. I don't know, I said. But she's going to face what she did. He nodded slowly. She said you hate her. I don't, I said. I just stopped protecting her from herself. The weekend rolled by like a slow-motion car crash. Port Harlan loved gossip, and Angela's fall was better than television. People who once praised her were now whispering about that Whitaker girl who tried to cheat her sister. Even the morning radio host cracked a joke. Looks like luck ran out faster than the champagne. I didn't take pleasure in it, not exactly. It just felt right, balanced. Sunday morning, I got another call, this time from the sheriff's office. Miss Whitaker, we had a disturbance at your residence. Thought you'd want to know. My residence? Your family home. Neighbors called it in. Domestic dispute. Your sister's boyfriend left in a hurry. Broke the porch railing on his way out. Is she all right? She's fine. Shaken but fine. Says he took off with her car and some cash. We're filing a report. I thanked him, hung up, and sat in silence for a moment. Then I drove past the house. The lawn was littered with empty bottles and wet newspapers. The front door was open. Angela stood in the doorway, barefoot, mascara streaked down her cheeks. When she saw me, she didn't yell, didn't smirk, just said, "He took everything." I warned you, I said. She laughed, broken. You always warn people. You never help them. I tried to help you, I said. You just never listened. She leaned against the doorframe. You think this makes you the hero? You think everyone's going to thank you for ruining me? No, I said calmly. But I didn't need to ruin you, Angela. You did that yourself. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her hands were shaking. What happens now? The truth comes out, I said. Behind her, Ethan's bike was still leaning against the porch, half rusted. I looked at it and thought about how kids inherit their parents' chaos if nobody stops it. As I turned to leave, Angela's voice cracked. Caroline, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I looked back at her. You never mean it. You just never stop it. Back in my car, I sat there for a while before starting the engine. Through the windshield, I saw her sink to the floor inside, holding her head in her hands. The house that once felt too small for both of us now looked like it was collapsing under just one. When I pulled away, the porch light flickered again, faint against the dark sky. The same light Dad had installed decades ago, still standing, still working, even when everything else had fallen apart. I didn't plan to see Angela again so soon, but life rarely takes your plans seriously. Monday morning, Grant called to say the verification hearing was officially scheduled at the county courthouse. Be there by 9, he said. Bring your ID, the original receipt, and keep your mouth shut until I tell you otherwise. I've been quiet most of my life, I said. I think I can manage a few hours. When I walked into the courthouse, The hallway smelled like old paper and disinfectant, clean but tired. Reporters were already waiting outside, pretending they weren't. Angela sat on a bench by the door with a publicist-looking woman and her attorney, some guy in a shiny blue suit who kept checking his watch. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of pretending had finally caught up to her. Her eyes met mine for half a second before darting away. Grant motioned me over. "Don't engage," he whispered. "We let the evidence talk." Inside the courtroom, the judge looked like he'd seen every kind of family disaster and was too old to care anymore. He started with a flat tone. Case number 2025-47, Whitaker versus Whitaker, regarding disputed ownership of a lottery ticket valued at $85 million. That number hung in the air like a bad smell. Angela flinched slightly when she heard it spoken out loud. Her lawyer stood first, pacing dramatically. "Your Honor, my client, Miss Angela Whitaker, claims the winning ticket was a gift from her sister, given out of goodwill before their relationship deteriorated. We have witnesses who heard her mention the ticket and—" Grant cut in smoothly. "No witnesses can verify ownership because ownership is proven by the signature, the receipt, and the timestamp video, all of which belong to my client, Caroline Whitaker." The judge raised a brow. "You have the documentation?" Grant handed over the folder. The clerk projected the footage from Mark's store onto the courtroom screen. There I was clear as day, signing the back of the ticket, folding it, sliding it into my pocket. My handwriting matched the sample from my ID. The timestamp lined up with the receipt. The room went so quiet you could hear the buzz from the old ceiling fan. Angela shifted in her seat, eyes locked on the screen. Her lawyer tried to recover. That could be any ticket. The judge interrupted. "Unless there are two identical tickets with the same signature, this argument is done." And Grant leaned back, calm as ever. "Your Honor, my client also filed an injunction preventing any transfer of funds until this verification. We're asking for immediate confirmation of rightful ownership and protection from further defamation." The judge nodded slowly, flipping through the pages. "Everything checks out. Miss Caroline Whitaker is the legal owner of the ticket and the winnings. Case closed." He banged the gavel once. Just like that, 12 years of quiet patience paid off. Angela's lawyer started talking again, but she wasn't listening. She was staring at me like seeing me for the first time, without the illusion of control. Her voice cracked. "You couldn't just let me have it, could you?" I looked at her evenly. "You couldn't just leave it where it belonged." She stood, trembling. "I didn't mean to steal it. I thought if I had something big enough, maybe people would finally respect me." "They might have," I said, "if you'd earned it." "Oh." The bailiff started ushering people out, but Angela stepped toward me. "You've always hated me, Caroline. Don't act like this is about justice. You wanted to humiliate me." "No," I said quietly. "I wanted to stop you." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time in her life, she looked lost instead of angry. Grant nudged my elbow. "Let's go. They'll swarm you outside." He was right. The moment we stepped through the courthouse doors, microphones popped up like weeds. Reporters shouted questions. "Is it true your sister stole the ticket? What are you going to do with the money? Do you plan to press charges?" I didn't stop walking. "Justice doesn't shout," I said once, just loud enough for one of them to hear. "It just stands tall." Grant smirked as we got into his car. "That's going to be tomorrow's headline. Let them print it," I said. We drove in silence for a few blocks. Finally, he said, "You want my advice? Don't rub it in. Win quietly." "That. I don't need to rub it in," I said. "She'll feel it every time someone looks at her different." When I got back to the diner, Ethan was sitting at the counter with Mrs. Hargrove, reading a comic book. He looked up as soon as I walked in. "Did they fix it?" "They did." "So, you're rich?" I smiled faintly. "Let's just say I won't be eating diner pancakes forever." He grinned, then his expression turned worried. "What's going to happen to Mom?" "She's going to have to learn what consequences look like," I said. "But she'll survive." He nodded slowly, processing it. "You're not mad anymore, are you?" "No," I said. "Being mad takes energy I'd rather spend on better things." Mrs. Hargrove handed me a mug of coffee. "You did right by that boy," she said softly. I looked at him 10 years old, sitting straighter than most grown men. He did right by himself. Later that evening, the news confirmed it publicly. The rightful winner of the $85 million jackpot is former Army officer Carolyn Whitaker of Port Harlan. I didn't celebrate. I didn't buy champagne or make a statement. I just sat by the window of the diner, watching cars drive past in the rain, the reflection of the neon sign flickering against the glass. A few hours later, I heard a car pull up outside. Headlights flashed through the window. Angela stepped out, umbrella in hand, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She came inside, dripping rainwater on the floor. Mrs. Hargrove glanced at me, unsure whether to intervene. I shook my head. Angela stood a few feet away, shivering slightly. You got what you wanted. No, I said. I got what was mine. She looked around the diner, then at Ethan sitting in the back booth pretending not to stare. Can I talk to you? I motioned to a seat across from me. She sat down, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve. I'm not here to fight, she said. I know it's over. I didn't think it would end like this. It didn't have to, I said. You made choices. I was scared, she whispered. Everything was falling apart and you came back like you had it all figured out. I couldn't stand feeling small next to you. I never asked you to, I said. She wiped her eyes. You think I'm a terrible person? I thought for a moment. I think you're a person who forgot where the line was. And now you know. Her voice cracked. Can I still see Ethan? I looked toward the kid, pretending to read his comic again. That's between you and him. But if you want him in your life, you start by being someone worth his time. She nodded, tears running freely now. I don't know how to fix it. Then start with an apology that doesn't come with excuses. Angela lowered her head, breathing shakily. I'm sorry, Caroline. Debowin. For once, it sounded real. Not polished. Not rehearsed. Just broken honesty. I nodded. That's a start. The rain outside softened, tapping lightly against the diner windows. Angela stood, wiped her face, and walked out quietly. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. Some battles don't end with surrender. They end with understanding why the war started in the first place. 2 days after the court ruling, I woke up before sunrise. The air smelled like rain and cut grass, the kind of quiet morning that feels borrowed from a better world. I made coffee in the small diner kitchen and sat outside on the steps while the sky turned gray-blue over Port Harlan. It was strange, waking up with nothing left to fight for. For months, every breath had been about proving the truth, and now the truth was public record. The money, the ticket, the name, it was all mine. Yet sitting there, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like finishing a long march, only to realize you'd been walking in circles. Grant called around 8. The transfer's official. Funds are cleared, accounts ready. You're now $85 million richer. I laughed softly. Guess that's one way to say good morning. He chuckled. You'd be surprised how many people cry or faint when they hear that number. You sound like you just won a free toaster. I've seen worse windfalls end badly, I said. Money doesn't fix character. He paused. You really believe that? I've got living proof, I said. He sighed. Fair enough. But take my advice, get a financial advisor, not a friend. Keep your circles small. Circles already microscopic, I said. When we hung up, I drove to the lawyer's office, signed the last of the transfer papers, and walked out with nothing more than a check folder in my hand, a fortune wrapped in paper. As I passed the courthouse steps, I spotted Angela sitting on a bench. No makeup, no jewelry, no entourage, just her and a paper cup of coffee that looked as bitter as her expression. She saw me but didn't speak right away. I guess it's official now, she said finally. It was official the moment you took something that wasn't yours. She nodded slowly. They're talking about charging me for fraud. I might lose the house. I didn't flinch. That house hasn't been a home for a while. Her voice broke a little. Ethan doesn't want to come back. How, Jess? Can you blame him? She looked away, tears sliding down her face. I thought getting rich would fix everything. The debts, the shame, the way people looked at me. Money only changes what kind of fool you can afford to be, I said. She gave a weak laugh. You always did have a way of saying the one thing that cuts clean. It's a skill, I said, standing. As I turned to leave, she reached out and grabbed my sleeve. Wait, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say this. I was jealous, Caroline. You had discipline, people respected you, and I wanted that without doing the work. I thought if I could just win once, just once, I'd finally feel worth something. I looked down at her hand on my sleeve. You can't buy worth, Angela. You build it. Her fingers loosened, and she nodded, eyes red. I know that now. I walked away. Not out of cruelty, but because the conversation had nowhere left to go. Some truths don't need to be repeated. They just need to sit heavy enough to be remembered. That afternoon, I took Ethan for ice cream. He'd earned a day off from all the noise. He didn't talk much, just focused on balancing his cone so it wouldn't drip. You okay, kid? I asked. He shrugged. I guess. Mom called last night. She said she's sorry. That's good. She said you helped her more by stopping her than by forgiving her. I smiled faintly. She might be right. He looked at me. You still love her, don't you? I don't know if love's the right word, I said, but I don't hate her anymore. He nodded like that made sense. Mom said she wants to start over. Maybe move somewhere new. That's probably the best idea she's had in years. The next day, I met with a veteran's financial counselor, a man named Rivera, who used to handle Army pensions. He didn't talk like a banker. He talked like someone who'd seen soldiers lose everything to bad decisions. Most lottery winners go broke in 5 years, he said, sliding me a folder. You're not going to be one of them. We're setting up a trust, structured investments, donations, you name it. Donations? I asked. Yeah, you said you served with folks who didn't make it home. You could help their families, set up a fund in your parents' name. That idea sat right. Do it, I said. For the next few weeks, the noise started fading. News crews moved on to newer scandals. People stopped whispering when I walked by, and the town slowly went back to its dull rhythm. I bought a small house outside of town, a place with a porch, a workshop, and no ghosts. Ethan spent weekends there. He helped me plant a few trees out back and built a birdhouse with leftover scrap wood. He was quiet, thoughtful, too old for his age, but grounded in a way his mother never was. One evening, as the sun dipped low, we sat on the porch drinking lemonade. He looked out at the field and said, You know, Aunt Carrie, you don't look rich. I laughed. That's because I'm not stupid. He grinned. So what are you going to do now? I think I'm just going to live, I said. Maybe fix up old cars, travel a little, help people who need it. Like soldiers? Like anyone who's been kicked down and had to get back up. He nodded. That's a good kind of rich. And Artin, I glanced at him. Yeah, the only kind that lasts. Later that night, after I dropped him off, I drove past the old family house one last time. The porch light was still flickering. The place looked smaller now, as if the lies had drained it hollow. A for sale sign leaned crooked in the yard. Angela's car wasn't there. I didn't know where she'd gone, but I hoped it was somewhere she could start over. Maybe the kind of quiet town where people didn't know her name yet. As I sat there, I realized something. Revenge had been the fire that got me moving, but it wasn't what kept me standing. What mattered was regaining control of my home, my dignity, my peace. The lottery didn't change who I was. It just gave me the means to stop letting people rewrite my story. I rolled down the window, let the night air wash over me and whispered, Rest easy, Dad. The house is finally clean. The wind carried it away like an answer I didn't need to hear. Back at my new place, I stood under the porch light I'd installed myself, steady, bright, not flickering. The world was quiet, except for the sound of crickets. Somewhere between justice and forgiveness, I found something better. Balance. And that was worth more than $85 million ever could be. The first time I truly felt peace wasn't when the money cleared, or when the headlines faded. It was a quiet Tuesday morning, months later, when I was sanding down an old dresser in my workshop. The smell of pine and varnish filled the air. The radio hummed softly in the background, and for once, my mind wasn't racing anywhere. I'd turned the garage into something that resembled therapy scrap wood stacked neatly, half-finished furniture lined against the wall, tools arranged like soldiers ready for inspection, creating order out of mess. It was the only thing that ever made sense to me. Mrs. Hargrove stopped by with a basket of muffins. You've got visitors, she said, smiling in that way that meant she already knew I'd rather not. Through the open doorway, I saw Angela's car parked on the gravel. She stepped out slowly, her hair shorter, her clothes simple. No makeup, no perfume. Just a woman stripped of all the things she used to hide behind. Ethan jumped out from the passenger side and waved. "Aunt Carrie, I need 4." I smiled despite myself. "You've grown 2 inches," I said as he ran up and hugged me. "Mom says it's all the diner pancakes," he laughed. Angela approached quietly. Hey, I said. We stood there for a second, both unsure where to start. She was the one who broke the silence. "I didn't come here to ask for anything. I just wanted to say thank you for not pressing charges. The DA offered to cut a deal if you pushed, but you didn't." "You didn't need more punishment," I said. "You needed a mirror." Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. "I got one. Court, debt collectors, community service. Trust me, I see plenty of reflection now." Ethan tugged on her sleeve. "Mom volunteers at the food bank now. She's actually good at it." Angela nodded. "They needed help organizing donations. Guess your discipline rubbed off on me after all." "I didn't think that was contagious," I said, half joking. "It's not," she said softly. "You earned yours. I'm just learning it late." That. We stood in that uneasy peace, the kind that comes when the shouting's over but the echoes still linger. Angela looked around at the workshop. "You built all this?" "Yeah," I said. "Helps me keep my hands busy." She traced her fingers along the edge of the dresser I had been sanding. "It's beautiful. Dad would have liked this place." "He would have liked seeing you here more," I said. She nodded, eyes glassy. "I know." Ethan wandered off to look at the birdhouse in the yard, leaving us alone. Angela sighed. "I don't expect us to be close again. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. I've been clean, sober, working, taking care of myself." "That's good," I said. "Keep doing it for yourself, not for me." She looked up, meeting my eyes. "Do you think we'll ever be okay?" I leaned against the workbench. "I think we'll never be the same. But maybe that's okay." She exhaled, almost relieved. "I can live with that." We talked a little longer about Ethan's school, about the town, about the new veterans fund I'd set up in our parents' name. She told me she'd applied for a clerical job at the local hospital. Nothing fancy, just something steady. When they left, I watched the car disappear down the road. The ache that used to sit heavy in my chest didn't hurt the same anymore. It was there, but smaller, manageable. Like an old scar that still itches sometimes but doesn't bleed. A week later, I attended the dedication ceremony for the Whitaker Veterans Fund. The community center was full former soldiers, families, local reporters, even the mayor pretending to care. I stood at the podium, uncomfortable in the spotlight but steady. When it was my turn to speak, I looked out at the crowd and said, "People always ask what you do after you lose everything. The truth is, you stop trying to get back what's gone. You start building something new out of what's left. That's what service teaches you and what life proves over and over again." The applause felt polite but genuine. I didn't need a standing ovation. I just needed to say it out loud. After the ceremony, a few veterans came up to shake my hand. One of them, a guy named Russell who'd served in Iraq, said, "You didn't just get even, you got better. That's the real revenge." I smiled. "Maybe, but it takes a lot of self-control not to throw a punch first." He laughed. "Yeah, but that's the part they never make movies about." Later that evening, I drove back to the coast, to the small bluff overlooking the ocean where Dad used to take us fishing. The tide was low, the air smelled of salt and seaweed. I parked the truck, climbed out, and stood with my hands in my pockets, watching the water crash against the rocks. The horizon was pale gold, the kind of color that looks like forgiveness. I thought about everything that had happened, the house, the ticket, the fight, the courtroom. How every step that once felt like loss had led to this quiet stretch of peace. I wasn't the same person who'd come back from deployment, or the same sister who'd opened her home out of guilt. I was something different now, stronger, but not harder. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about letting her off the hook. It was about letting go of the rope that had been strangling me too. As the sun dipped lower, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small photo. Me, Angela, and Ethan from years ago, standing in front of the house before everything went sideways. I set it on a rock, anchored it with a shell, and said quietly, "This time, I'm letting it stay in the past." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of the sea, and for once, I didn't fight it. On my way home, I stopped by the diner. Mrs. Hargrove waved from behind the counter. "You look lighter," she said. "I left something heavy at the beach," I replied. She poured me coffee without asking. About time. As I sat by the window, watching the last of the sunlight fade over Port Harlan, I realized something simple but solid. Peace doesn't come with winning. It comes with stopping the war you've been fighting inside your own head. The town felt quieter now, or maybe I was just done listening for trouble. When I stepped outside, the air was cool, the sky streaked with the last lines of orange. The neon sign buzzed softly, the same one that used to flicker when I was broke and bitter and living out of a motel. Now it just hummed steady, a reminder that even broken things can shine again once you fix the wiring. I got in my truck, turned the key, and drove home. No destination, no plan, just the road and the quiet hum of peace finally catching up. There was no applause, no cinematic closure. Just a life my life moving forward. Steady, earned, and finally mine again.